Hello and welcome to another episode of Billy Watson TV. Today I will be interviewing Dawn Lester, the co-author of the book, What Really Makes You Ill, which some people refer to as the Bible of the truth. About why everything you thought you knew about disease is wrong. We will talk about the proposed terminally ill adults, end-of-life bill, and other health-related topics. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Billy Watson TV. It gives me great pleasure to have an old friend come on the show. Not old in the old sense of the word, but old in we've known each other for a while. And it's a great pleasure to have the co-author of a couple of books here. We've got the co-author of The Nature of Reality and of course the book that many people know, What Really Makes You Ill. Quite a book. She wrote both of them with David Parker, and a great contribution to the world and knowledge about ourselves and healing, and lots of aspects in there that you can get your teeth into. So anyway, welcome to the show, Dawn Lester. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Billy. Thanks for inviting me. And yes, thank you for the old friend. But yes, no, that's good. Yeah, we met pretty early in the I'll be careful here. The 2020 nonsense. So yeah. Or do I not?
You don't need to be careful in my show. I notice on some other shows, basically, you have to watch, say, C words and stuff like that, but anything goes, so feel relaxed to express yourself how you wish.
Okay, that's fine. It's not that I'm self-censoring. It's just, with so many videos, podcasts, interviews, all sorts of things being censored, deleted, I just wouldn't want to be responsible for you having any kind of strikes or deletions or anything like that. So yeah, okay, I'm just checking. So since the whole COVID nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit frustrating. I did fall out with YouTube because I was getting striked and kept on getting videos removed. So I actually took all my everything off apart from other bands' music I kept. And then recently it says, I'll put them back on. And then before I know it, I've had about 20, 25 messages. Oh, we're deleting this because we found this word and this thing, and it's not classed as a strike because you may not have known about it, but it's just, they're still in the background there, the AI tool or whatever it is, just finding one word here or there and just deleting stuff. So I'm at the same point as a Conspiracy Music Guru who I interviewed recently, whereas we're not playing the game. If you lose the channel, then it goes, and there's other platforms. I'm trying to get people to my website and have all this stuff there in one hub. And again, I'm using things like Substack. And there's another thing, Lounges TV. I'm seeing how long it is before I get banned there. But I posted all your interviews with David and yourself there a few days ago. But I entered a competition where I posted this comedy competition. I posted this rant about me with Speakeasy, who you put me in touch with, Michael Bernicia. I've done a couple of gigs for them. So it was an awake audience, so I was ranting about the vaccines and stuff. And I entered the competition, but it's not been accepted into the competition yet. But when you read the rules, they've got a comedy competition, but you can't say this and misinformation and any hate speech, or can't talk about drink, can't talk about drugs and all this stuff. It's like totally deballing comedy. What is the point of having a comedy competition where you can't talk about anything? But that's the same in actual comedy as well. I've been barred from everywhere in Scotland, basically, because of the tone of my material or whatever, because the general public and the promoters, they don't like when one audience member says, oh, that's controversial, whatever. So it's all sanitized and deballed and completely, not what comedy should be. So anyway, I went into hiding a wee bit for about a year or so, and I've just decided I'm coming back with interviews and, just being myself again and fuck it. Basically, it's...
You have to just be yourself. But I mean, it's no wonder comedy is just mainstream comedy is so lame, because they've got to follow all sorts of rules. And so many mainstream people have followed the narrative, or, you know, sort of like big names, if you like, mainstream, you know, that they're following the narrative, and well, whether they actually believe it or not, but they're following it, and so they're putting out all kinds of information, well, misinformation, disinformation. It's just yeah, so difficult when these big names that people follow are saying stuff and go, oh well, they've said it. It doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I mean, it's still unbelievable. You know, back in the day, like I never vaccinated my son 20 years ago, so I was aware that, you know, vaccines were poison basically and could potentially cause autism and various other illnesses. But I wasn't fully 100% on the fact that there literally is no virus getting passed amongst us, you know. So when I seen an interview with you and the guy who was in America, one of the first interviews you done just at the COVID time, Richie from Boston, the song I made about you actually. Yeah, and you talked about no virus, so that's when I got you on the show, you and David, and then we've done quite a few interviews at the start of COVID, and I was straight on it then. And that's actually just 5 years you've had this book published now, just past the anniversary, so it was just literally in December 2019, before the whole debacle started. So it was good to have you guys coming, and then I managed to tell quite a lot of people about your work in Scotland anyway. And since then you've went on to very many more podcasts, and I think you've had a few trips abroad and stuff where you've given talks based on the work you've done in that book. So it's had a great effect, I think. But it's really frustrating that not everybody's on it. I've still got people on my Facebook page today, you know, I've got the flu, I've got some virus going around, and you're like,
Yes. I mean, there are some people, I mean, I know there's been an awful lot of information now about the dangers of vaccines, and a lot of people are aware of that. That's great. So, you know, that's a big step. But many still haven't taken that next step into the whole germ theory, really understanding that that's unproven. You know, they're just holding on to that, and in some ways, you know, doesn't seem to make any sense. Or, you know, there's somebody the other day insisting that, you know, well, we do have an immune system because of the bad pathogens, but this is somebody who's supposed to believe in terrain theory. Well, hang on a minute. So there seem to be some variations on what's called terrain theory, although the actual terrain is it's a terrain paradigm, terrain model, whatever. It's not a theory, because that's actually, it represents how the body works. So, but this guy had the idea that terrain theory meant that, you know, your body can, as long as you look after it, your body can fight off all the bad germs. And go, well, no, it's not. There's nothing to fight, and this is where a lot of people seem to be stuck. That, you know, you can, well, if you look after your body, it'll fight things. And you go, well, it just isn't how that works. There isn't anything to fight, you know. So the whole idea of disease is any kind of disease that, you know, attacks you, so you have to defend yourself, and it
puts us in a point of kind of you know, disempowerment, because these things are flying around, and just my luck, I caught this thing, rather than understanding, because that's what, again, your book and work done was made me realize, actually, you know, what we put into our body, even just the water at the tap. You know, I've got a distiller, so every day distilling water, because you realize there's toxins in the water. You put that in your body, then you're going to get ill. And then over this Christmas and New Year period, a lot of people are suffering the effects from overindulgence and, you know, all the crap they put into their body or whatever, and then blaming this flu. There's fog going around a couple of days. I know the fog thing could be something else, but still, it's quite a lot of it's probably caused by their own. Even the fog is still, you're breathing it in, you know, so we are responsible for what we put into our body. It's like, I think maybe David or yourself said it, it's like having a hangover and somebody else drinking and you're catching their hangover. It's not going to happen. You know, you are responsible for your own health, basically.
Absolutely. Sorry, excuse me. And I think that could be the reason that some people are reluctant to understand how it actually works, because it means they've got to take responsibility for their own actions, and they've got to maybe make some changes. And sometimes people like some of their habits, and But it's not to say that oh, you've got to be all perfect and pure and clean and all of that. It's just being aware, and it's also not to be in fear either, because that's a whole big thing, which I'm sure we can get into. But it's just realizing that there is something that we can do, so we can actually take back control, and that's empowering, as you say. Thinking, oh, there's nothing I can do, as you say, it's disempowering. and it's also, it can be a bit, I don't know, there's so many different ways that it could affect different people, but it's sort of lazy. Oh, well, it doesn't matter what I do, I can just go to the doctor, get a pill.
Yeah, that one as well, that frustrates me as well. Magic pills that these doctors have got, got a headache, take a pill, got this, take a pill. And yeah, I find that the most frustrating though, when you try to tell someone and then they're a bit resistant and say, I've got some information, and you share a link or something with them, and they just don't look at it at all. It's just, there's something in their brain, it's like fear or something, that, like, for instance, I know somebody who's had a child recently, and then the child's got ill, and I told them about vaccines when they first got born. Child got ill and it's got chicken pox, and later on it's got other things, and I was like, are you still vaccinating it? And you could see it like, oh yeah, I'm actually, but they never said that, because then it's responsibility on them. Well, what did you do? I went to the doctor, got some antibiotics, like, because again, the doctor's this God-like figure, these people in authority, which again, we come on to the assistant dying thing. If they tell you you've got something, then the nocebo effect or your belief in it can solidify, but how do they exactly know? In fact, they don't, because they're miseducated in the whole system, the whole way it's designed. So they actually think they're in a place of superior knowledge. But actually, as your book points out, at many different levels, there's maybe another way to look at things.
And also the labels, like you say, oh, my child's got, chickenpox, it got measles. It's that association with some kind of entity that's, there's chickenpox and there's measles, and it's something they've got. Again, it's all built into the language that we're so indoctrinated with. So, I don't want to catch your cold, or oh, don't get the, I don't want to get that. It's just it's so indoctrinated, so conditioned, and it's hard to say no, it's the other way around. Your body's producing these symptoms. And again, also seeing that symptoms are bad, this whole idea, oh, well, I've got this, and oh, it's bad. And no, it's, it's understanding what the body is, how it actually works. And this is the terrain paradigm, which is, your body will respond to its environment. I mean, that even goes for genetics. With Bruce Lipton's work, he showed that genes are activated. It's well known that genes are activated by the environment, change the environment and change the gene expression. So the gene expression is not the primal mover in something that happens. It's something in the environment that expresses different genes. And there's question marks about what genes are in DNA, but let's leave that to one side for the moment. But even within that concept of genetic expression, it's known that, like within epigenetics, although, there are, expanded understanding of where that's going as well, because that again brings in the whole idea of mind and what we can control and what we can influence in our experiences, and that includes what goes on in the body, which, as you say, we'll come onto in when we talk about the article. But it is that having these ideas that are so stark, and for some reason some people feel that it's difficult to get past them. And it is that belief in the authority, as you say. I mean, that's just, well, they've studied for years, I don't, that's they know I don't. And yet, if people actually thought about it, who's the one person who knows your body? Your doctor doesn't know your body. You live with your body 24/7. So you're the one who knows how it works, what happens. And it's understanding that and learning to recognize the signals, the little signs. So the headache, what caused the headache. Now, yes, this time of year it could have been overindulgence in all kinds of things during the holiday season, which, and then they call it flu season. No, it's, some people say detox season, cleansing, because the body's saying, oh, no, it was okay, but now it's been a bit too much. We need to clear the system of all the, the extra rich foods, sweet foods, whatever it is, or just the excess, and so as symptoms, oh no, I've got symptoms, I've got to stop them. And it is so difficult to get people to see, no, it's the other way around. And as we know, so many things that we've been looking at, these different systems, not just the health system, are just inversion of the truth.
Yeah.
And it's getting people to kind of twist it the other way and just kind of go, no, see it from the other perspective. Your body doesn't make mistakes. It knows what it's doing, and we are learning to listen to it. And we're all still learning. I'm not saying I know it all. It's just I'm learning to recognize the little signs. And for me, it's just, for examples, if I get a headache, sometimes that's just a signal to have a bit of a rest. Just take some time out. Don't spend so much time on the screen, or just it's usually take a rest, whatever it is, and tends to work. I don't go for any pills or potions, and I just listen and just recognize
things are so ingrained, as you say, in our language and the way to think of things. Like I've been doing my postman job, which can be quite stressful. More than contract, I've been 10 hours without a break, which is scandalous. But anyway, I've got this little Bluetooth speaker, and I had the headphones in my ears, and David says, oh, you done a test, and so I ditched them. But I thought, I'll get this and I'll just put it on my bag. But then I'm walking around all day in a kind of Bluetooth aura, I think. And I can kind of feel my sore head coming on as the day goes on. So I'm actually not going to use it anymore, because I think that could be a contributing factor. It's just maybe to try and think of things like that. And then also, like I think you mentioned on a podcast recently about coffee. I was drinking a lot of coffee. I went to Turkey and I was on these double express coffees 3 times a day and stuff like that. And I felt like I was getting addicted to them. It's like, oh, you need your coffee. And for years I never touched coffee until I started going to Turkey and having these small ones. I quite liked them. So anyway, I actually detoxed from them, and oh my God, it was horrific coming off. As like this caffeine stuff inside me. I just felt so it was like 2 or 3 days of hell. And again, it's being aware of what you're putting into your body, I guess, and what can be causing these things. And again, these things we call symptoms is the body is always trying to heal itself. So, for instance, the chicken pox, whatever, that's expressing toxins, but then the doctor will say put some cream on it, and then that'll suppress it from coming out. So then it'll have to go somewhere else, or and cancer, people, that's a big thing, but that's actually storing toxins. It's not, again, what we're led to believe in how we think about health, which is why your book, why everything you thought you about disease is wrong. And again, life in general, we get fed so much rubbish about everything. It's hard to swim against that almost, but that's what you have to do to be a conscious person, I think.
And going back to what you were saying about detoxing from the coffee after your, after being in Turkey, that you at least recognized what was going on, rather than thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me, I've got something or whatever. You recognize it, and maybe that might help you kind of make slightly different decisions next time. Maybe not have quite so many. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm off the coffee now.
Well, we choose. Yeah, I mean, I've been reducing my coffee intake. I mean, I never drank many because I knew I could have one small one a day, but the second one, just occasionally I'd have a second one. I was like, no, I really don't like this. So I decided I would stop the daily habit, and so I was having much less. Then had one the other day, and I felt it, and I thought, no, my body doesn't like this. So again, it's I like the taste. That's the problem, like you're saying. This tastes nice, and yet your body's saying no, don't like it. So
And one day I went for a double coffee. I had a big bit of cake, and then later on I had another double coffee. And I was playing pool, and I was feeling my heart like pounding away. It was like, oh my God, this really does have a big effect. You know, you don't kind of realize it, but again, everything that you put in your body has to deal with. And you know, even I've been getting into learning a little bit about fasting, and that's quite an interesting thing. Like, what the body does if you're not eating for 16 days, because all 16 hours, all the time it's working on digesting food and dealing with the different types of food you put in. But if you clean your gut, then it goes into a healing mode and it starts repairing cells and stuff like that, which your doctor will never tell that, you know, we don't need to do anything, you just go and lie down, you know, and that's it. But, you know, the body again knows what it's doing and can actually repair things and heal. People got healed from MS and different things just through fasting, which is, you say a miracle, but when you know the science, it's actually, you know, natural.
Yes, I mean, as you say, it seems like a miracle. At the same time, that's part of the conditioning, that, you know, our bodies are so stupid that it will actually attack itself. But, you know, I do these air quotes, but yeah, it just horrifies me that doctors actually believe that the body will attack itself, and no, it is their training, their conditioning, and it is a shame, because the body is amazing. The body is actually brilliant, and like you say, it is working to heal itself, to say survive, but more than that, you know, to thrive, to heal, to restore harmony, homeostasis, you know, getting everything back into the balance and the levels that they should be, which is why, you know, if you have too much caffeine, it's just going to, well, we need to get rid of that. And, you know, as you say, the withdrawal effects, they're not because, you know, your body's ill or something. So and that's also part, as I say, part of the conditioning of the body isn't capable of doing something. But it's again not just the body, because it's, you know, the mind, body, spirit, if you like, it's like all of it together. And of course, you know, they regard the body as different parts, so you can fix a bit in one part and that won't affect everything else. And of course that's just not the case, because it's interconnected, you know. Just understanding the nervous system, the blood system, just all of it, everything is interconnected. So it's not, you know, it's not a car where, oh, well, you can just take out this bit, put another one in there and fix it, and you go, no, the body might be able to adapt to that. And certainly with surgeries, the body does have issues with being, you know, cut open. I mean, and again, I'm, you know, again, disclaimer here, obviously none of this is to be taken as medical advice. There are times that the medical system has its uses, injury and accidents, those kinds of situations, you know, trauma, you know, this sort of accident, injury, trauma is, I don't mean emotional trauma, you know, physical. They're you know, they're really good for that. It's just the whole so-called disease part of it that really they don't have the right foundation. They're starting from the wrong place, and so they can never fix the situation. They can never provide solutions because they're starting from the wrong place. I mean, it's just so many times in things that I write, I say, well, you can't solve problems unless you address the, you know, the root cause, and the causes we're given aren't the root causes at all, you know. Yep. As people are learning. So yeah,
I was wondering what you think about cancer specifically, because I know that was kind of part of your journey, was kind of healing yourself from cancer. Did you go to the doctors and listen to them? And what do you think cancer is? I mentioned earlier it's like probably storing toxins, but can the body heal itself from cancer? Because, you know, there's all this cancer research, millions of money for this, and charities, prostate cancer, and all these things.
Very lucrative industry.
Can fasting, you know, if it's storing these toxins, then will fasting allow a slow release of them back into your body and to come out? Like, because again, with the vaccines, there's been so many people with these turbo cancers and stuff now, and they're going to get a death sentence from the doctor. So it's like chemo or an operation, and as we come on to it shortly, this end of life thing, whereby you've only got 6 months to live because you've got cancer. It's quite a big thing.
It is. I'd start from the point that there isn't a single thing that is cancer. Even in the mainstream, if you look at it, it's recognized as being, a variety of different conditions. So yes, there are what they call the solid tumor cancers, and there are certainly many people who are happy with that idea that it's holding on to toxins, or secreting them in a safe place away from organs that could be otherwise damaged. And so they're secreting them into that place, so that when there's an opportunity for the repair mechanisms to actually, become effective, it will then go ahead and deal with it. And that's when those mechanisms involve bacteria quite often, and fungi. And that's where they say, oh, it's caused by bacteria or caused by fungi, because they're found, but they're not. But the bacteria and fungi are part of the healing process, because the body has been able to move its processes, its healing processes, and start to work on that bag of toxins, if you like. So that's another reason that fasting may work, because exactly as you said, when the body isn't dealing with digestion, which actually takes a lot of energy and a lot of processes, if it's not dealing with digestion, it can move towards dealing, the processes can actually, there's more energy to expend on dealing with any kind of damage that needs healing, or tumors, or anything that requires to be restored to homeostasis of whatever that is. So again, it's like I say, I don't regard cancer as a disease. It's a variety of different conditions that are viewed in certain ways that then get that label. And as you say, that label is still it's still very scary for a lot of people. I mean, when I was young, people wouldn't even say the word. It was, it was behind the hand. It was, because it was a big deal. I mean, it still is a big deal, but it's, it's so much more rife everywhere. So many. With my own situation, I was in the mid-90s. That's heading for 30 years ago now. That. It's hard now to think how I was then. I'm always sort of looking back, as I'm thinking from where I am now. But at the time, I mean, I did go the mainstream route. I had surgery, chemo, and radiotherapy.
All right.
And I was on tamoxifen for a couple of years. However, whatever it was when I had that diagnosis, although even then I don't remember it ever being put as something like a heavy, so I don't know, it just was, however it came across. As I say, I can't exactly remember, but I do remember that I knew it was something to do with my mindset, and it was something to do with me, and I felt there was something for me. It was something I needed to do. I had to make changes, because I'd not been happy or for quite some time, and it felt like, I suppose, a wake-up call, as many people say. So this is my experience. This is not, everyone's different. So just from my personal experience, it felt like a wake-up call of some description. So I started making some changes once I'd gone through their system. I knew somehow not to be in fear. I was connected with other people going through the same thing, and at some point I knew, to keep going over it and holding on to it. So I kind of stepped away, and I moved away, and then that's when I opened up to other things happening, and made some changes, other things shifted. That's when I came across the Nature of Reality material, and to me that just made things fall into place. And I knew it was then down to me to understand what that meant, what that episode meant for me, and what I could then do with my life and make some changes. So I was, making changes. Again, loads of people have gone through their own processes of either not going down the mainstream route of taking any kind of treatment and looking at other ways of healing their body. So there is no, for me, there is no one way, because we're different, and so we'll find what works for us. So for each of us, but I do know, and that's where I'm sort of pretty focused now, is I know that there's a mental psychological element to most conditions, and the more I look into this, I'm finding that that's the case for all kinds, even what are regarded as physical symptoms. I came across some work by Dr. John Sarno, who said that I think it's something like 70% of back pain is not actually structural, it's not physical. So there's some kind of emotional, psychological situation that the person's in, which when they resolve, their back pain goes. So that, again, fascinating, which also ties in, placebo, nocebo. So the more I look, the more I find of this kind of information, which shows how we can be drawn into feeling like victims of something and then not doing, or we can take back responsibility, take back control. And that's where the empowerment comes in. And that's when you start doing things and you start learning, and then you start realizing you can do more, and then you just keep expanding.
Yeah, when we mentioned earlier about mind, body, soul, and this kind of talk, I was going to mention the fact that the news and then television and EastEnders and all these kind of things, it's all based on negativity. Or you go into Twitter to try and keep up to date with the current news or whatever, and it's just stabbings and just a whole, just one after another, just doom and gloom, and you can actually feel yourself. Well, I can anyway. I guess some people are more sensitive than others, but you can feel yourself getting tense, and it's just horrible stuff you would never want to watch. Granted, there's horrible things going on in the world, and we should do our best to eradicate them. But you've only got so much influence in your life around you. It's better that you protect everything that goes in your body, and that includes, media, which. If you interviewed Dr. Shiva, and he talked about the swarm, where you imagine the group at the top of all the businesses, at the top of the pyramid, getting together and saying, well, I'll poison their minds with the negative news, and they'll feel bad, and they'll go to the doctor, and the pharmaceutical guy will give them a tablet, and they're all kind of just profiting from our ignorance, really. And the news and what you put into your mind is a huge part of that as well. And I actually done back in the day a bit of self-hypnosis and NLP studying with Paul McKenna and Richard Bandler, and that made me realise you actually have the power. You think this voice is like you're the voice. If you do meditation, you realise you observe the voice. So first of all, you don't have to be attached to it, but second of all, you can control almost your voice and what you think and how you choose to think, and you're not like a slave to it, which I don't think a lot of people can understand, or they're just this voice in their head rabbiting away, and they're very reactionary to life. But again, taking power back over what we put into our body and how we choose to think, basically, is something that we could be doing with more people being aware of that power.
Totally, and absolutely with the language. The words we use will betray our conditioning and where we've got ideas. So, there's sort of, the obvious ones when people say, oh, well, I can't, you go, oh, hang on a minute, why do you think you can't? So, and it's not being, sort of like psychoanalyzing people. It's not that at all. It's just when you become aware of the language that you're using, you think, oh, well, why did I say that? So it's, you to a certain extent, you can do it for yourself, question yourself. And when you become aware, like you say, you're aware of what you're thinking of, the words you're using, and the chatter in your head and what that's saying to you. So you can say, oh, why, not in a harsh way, but just question yourself. Where's that come from? Why do I think that? What makes me think that? Why, what is that attached to? And sometimes you can find it's attached to something that somebody said to you once, and you think, well, is that true? do I have to, does it serve me now? Is it of any benefit to me now? What can I do with it? Is it useful? And sometimes you go, well, that's useful to know that I'm still hanging on to that, but does that benefit me? Does that help me in what I'm doing in my life? Sorry, excuse me. So it is totally, it's so empowering. It's so important to understand how we've been conditioned, and so how we can then decondition ourselves, if you like, to be aware, like you say, with the media, just all the stuff that's coming out, and I mean, we know with the language of the programs, television programs, like you say, things, the standard programs, soaps and things that people watch, they've probably got those situations, and they've probably got all the mainstream narratives in there to reinforce them. So when people who watch that stuff regularly, and it's, again, not judgmental, it's just, people who are regularly watching that, regularly absorbing that material, if they hear you and I talking, they'll say, I don't know what you don't know what you're talking about. And that's because they're just so conditioned by that. They're stuck in that mindset. And they're not encouraged to think beyond that. Whereas, I think if you and I watch those programs, that's rubbish. It's rubbish.
I couldn't do it. My blood would boil very quickly. But with regard to this book here, The Nature of Reality, the thoughts you think, do you think they actually create your reality in some way? Like, for instance, I had a sticker on an old car that said, is it a bird, is it a plane, is it a wreck? And then 5 weeks later, I crashed it and it turned into a wreck, It's just like we're creating a reality through our language as well on a kind of metaphysical level. Would you?
I use the phrase, we create our own experiences, because we're each experiencing, having our own experiences, and each of us is unique. And so our experiences are unique to us, and they're formed through our own ideas, beliefs, and ideas, limitations, and to some extent, what we have chosen to experience in this form. So I'm sure there's some, I know people talk about, like soul contracts. I'm not sure about that. Again, sorry, this is like the different language, but it's there's definitely a sense that we each have a role to play here. There's a purpose in our own experience, and so that's why we are all different, which is good. At the same time, it makes it, people say, well, I'm right, you're wrong. Just, well, parts of it, because we're having, our experiences are different, so we're running through, and again, I think we talk about it in the book, through different filters. So the more of the conditioning we let go of, the fewer filters we have, and so we see things somewhat differently. So we are creating our own experiences within this seemingly physical realm that we experience as physical. It's not as fixed as we're told it is. I mean, I think, and again, different people have different ideas, but the Mandela effect is, to me, says, oh, okay, there's some things that seem to shift and change a bit. So this reality, this realm is a bit, is malleable, is not fixed and objective as we've been told.
Some people would call it a simulation, but some people kind of regale against that phrase.
I know the idea of simulation means it's it's created, and some people say it's been created by some other machine or whatever. And again, we don't know at this at this sort of physical level. We don't know. It's like trying to work out what's in the sky. We can't go up there. So we can only know from the perspective of our own experiences. And of course, if we're having different experiences, then some people will have more, will experience life as if it's more of a simulation and there's nothing they can do. Maybe I don't know if that's, but again, the simulation makes it feel more sort of like computer, fixed, if you like, rather than being flexible. So I tend not to use that word, but I do understand it's not what everyone means. Sometimes it just, well, it's at the same time, I do, I was going to say believe is the wrong word. I do accept that there is an ultimate creator, that we are all sparks of the divine, as I that's the phrase I like to use. And I sometimes use the analogy of like a tree, whereas reality, all of reality is like a tree, and so everything on the tree is all interconnected, and we're like individual leaves. So each leaf is having a slightly different experience because they're in a different part of the environment, and so they're having a slightly different experience. But all that knowledge is known by the whole of the tree, which is the whole of consciousness. But that leaf is just a part of consciousness. So we're connected to it. So we are all part of it. We're just having a particular experience as individuated experience. And that's not to deny that this physical experience is important and real. It's as real as all others. It is. So it's not that the spiritual experience is more important. It's not. It's understanding that this is a way of experiencing life, and it's not disconnected from the spiritual, from the expanded consciousness. So it's not a lower form of existence, I think is how I put it.
Because last night you put me in touch with Saul Lockman, and I looked at his headline and his banner, and he was talking about basically, I think everyone has the potential to awaken. And just the day before, I was looking at what we would call NPCs, and a whole video of, there's these people who you kind of mentioned earlier, you talk to, and they just don't get it, or they can't look at what you're trying to tell them. So you just say, there's just a program of the Matrix, and they're there, and it's almost like they're an automaton, and that's their role in life, to kind of stop the other people from waking up. Or if you're trying to wake up and everyone around you is a program, it's just like you get frustrated. But you wouldn't say that people are like an NPC. You say everyone has the potential. It's maybe just not their time to know or go into a different level of knowledge, but what they're doing still has value, and it's not to put these people down. Would you agree with that? This NPC thing's not really legit.
Yes, I have a similar view to you, that it's not to reject their experience, that they're having, we're each on our own journey, so they're having their journey, and if they don't get it, it's not my job to make them get it. And I think in many ways, having those interactions with, and again, I don't use the word program, but it's just my choice where I am at the moment. It's not about being programmed. And as I say, I know other people have a different way of expressing. It's fine, but it's the lesson, if you like. The lesson for me is how I interact with those people. Yeah. Whether I think I have to educate them, which sounds like it makes me come across as if I think I'm superior. Well, I'm not. We are all different, like the leaves on the trees, one's not better than the other, it's we're different. So it's understanding, well, okay, that's where they are. So it's not to impose, it's not to look down on them because they're watching EastEnders and they'll think we're mad. To go, okay, that's their journey. If they're interested, I'm happy to talk, and not so that's one part of it. But I know also so many people who are interacting with other people on a daily basis, either within their family or friends at work or whatever it is, that they're having these situations where they're being made to feel bad, as if they're stupid or conspiracy theories, and those conversations are really difficult. And again, we have to just approach each conversation with each person based on where we are at the time, and sometimes go away and think, did I handle that the best way I could?
Yeah.
And again, not beating up, not beating ourselves up. It's just, these are opportunities for learning. Did I, how do I feel about my interaction with that person? Did I express myself clearly? Was I expressing myself from the core, from love? That's the thing, from love and compassion.
And certainly in the past, I would say I've been guilty of maybe being too harsh with people, or just trying to give them information out of frustration. I actually watched a video with Matt Letizia one time, and he put it quite well, as instead of trying to tell people the truth, as you would say, maybe ask questions and then get them to think about it themselves and, almost come up with the answers themselves, really.
Totally agree. Yes, I've said that sometimes, instead of trying to tell somebody, I'll ask them questions, pertinent questions, with, they say, well, my child, I don't know if they say my child caught chicken pox. They say, well, how do you know they caught it from them? Well, because well, how do you know? Just to do it in a gentle way, obviously not challenging them, but to find the right questions to ask them and get them to think for themselves. Because when people are told, we tend to back away and just, become defensive if they go, well, I know you don't know, I'm telling you. It's like going back to the classroom, the teacher going, oh, I'm telling you. No, because we're grown-ups, and say, okay, well, so, or just to say, well, I've looked at something and this is what I've found, have a look. You might want to have a look at it for yourself. I'll share some information if you like, if you're happy to look at it. I see things slightly differently, and that's fine. This is what I found. Just to come from a non-confrontational, because this is the point. And again, it's another one of my Substack articles that I wrote about divide and conquer. All of this is designed to try and get us to fight amongst ourselves, and of course then we're not looking at what other things, and we're not putting our energy into what we want to create. So we're then fighting the problems and just putting our energy there, and then we haven't got any energy and time or resources left to actually start creating solutions. So this is where a lot of people are now realizing that it's time to start moving into creating solutions, putting our energy into that. And it doesn't mean ignoring those people. Absolutely keep having the conversations, because just keep bringing them in, just to say, look, hey, we're not crazy conspiracy theorists over here, we're not nutters, we really are quite sensible people, and we're just looking at how we can live our lives from a place of freedom, love, compassion, care, joy, laughter, all. I'm not saying it's I'm not being sort of Pollyanna about this. Oh, it's all going to be ideal and hippy dippy everything. I don't mean that at all. So there are always challenges, and some of those are, well, we've not had this situation before. What can we do about this? How can we create this new way of living that doesn't involve all these systems that we're stuck into? So it's challenging to find new ways to do that, to find ways so that we can carry on being in contact with each other through this wonderful technology, using it for our benefit, not being used by it. So there's all these wonderful ideas that people are working on and doing some amazing stuff.
Yeah, ultimately, we do have to come together, and these systems that are in place do seem to be nefarious and parasitical. So the more we can think of the future, like if the system got pulled, the plug got pulled, we'd have to get together locally and think about, energy of some description, or growing our food and shelter and stuff. So to me, we should be doing that now, and stepping away from the so-called system as much as we can. And, part of that is obviously the pharmaceutical industry, which calls itself the main, and anything else is alternative. We need to think about looking after our own health so we don't get to the stage of being really ill. You talked about the Substack article there, your Substack page, what you want to call it, Dawn's writing. She's been doing that for a couple of years now, and you put out some really good articles that people, I think, really enjoy, still getting, some writing from you outside of the books that you've produced. And the one we're going to talk a lot about, shall we move on to that? There's this new bill that's coming out. A bill,
Yes,
of course.
just before we do that, because you mentioned Sol Lockman, but shout out to Sol Lockman, because it was down to him. Actually, 2.5 years ago, he suggested I move into Substack. So thanks to him, I started writing, and I thoroughly enjoy writing the articles and diving into them. So yeah, it's a great outlet for expressing, sharing information, and helping people to help empower themselves. That's my purpose. So yeah, no, but thank you.
With Substack, though, what I like about it is kind of got this free speech, philosophy or ethos behind it. But you can be, you're not going to get judged and banned for saying alternative things. And it may not be 100% true, whoever's putting the stuff out there, but at least people should have the right to say it. Then once you put it out there, you can get feedback, and then you can go and analyse what you've said and stuff like that. That's normal discourse, which these other platforms are just shutting down, because obviously they don't want people thinking outside of the box. So that's why, again, it's a good place for writers as well, because there's not many good, although it is going into audio and video stuff, it originally started for writers. So it's got people who want to take a bit of time to get into a topic and, delve into it and with some substance, and not just a few sound bites or a quick video. So yeah, Substack's a good platform, and I think more people should be aware of it. It should be more popular than it is, but it is growing quite a bit. And so shout out to Substack as well for having that kind of platform for people to use. The more the better, that are standing behind free speech. So you've done different articles in there, but the recent one you've done is for this. You might wonder why this is coming out these days, is terminally ill adults end of life bill. So a bill is like something that is going to get debated in Parliament, and then in theory will get turned into law, which is an act. It's all an act, isn't it? It's all theatre show. We might want to say what is law and all that kind of sovereign project type discussion. That's one thing, but at the end of the day, things will change because of if this does get put through the Parliament. And so would you like to explain a little bit about what this is? And again, we've had all the COVID stuff, so many more people are having health issues. And when did all this come in? Is this correlating with that, do you think?
Well, yes, that's a very good point, because I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine who's also got a Substack, so shout out to Rev Tina, and it was her idea, as we were having a discussion, and it was an interview, and that was posted a couple of weeks ago, that because of the timing, and I'll get into that shortly, that it does look like so many more countries and states in the US are bringing in this legislation, and it's not necessarily the only reason, but certainly to provide for the fact that there is going to be larger numbers of people. There are going to be more and more people having chronic health issues that is going to overwhelm the health system. So, if they can shunt a few out the back end to make room for those who are coming in the front end, I don't know. So it's just a way of covering it up. More people, chronic health issues. It could well be. I am in gathering some more information, and I'm going to be writing a follow-up article covering some of the points that I didn't cover in my first one. I mean, as I said, first of all, when I first saw it, I was like, it was like too sensitive. I wasn't going to touch it. And then I thought, no, because, and I'll explain, the main reason is because, like we were saying before, about the diagnosis and people receiving a diagnosis and taking that on as if it's a fact when it's not necessarily the case. I'll come back to that. But
I'll just put a quick picture up here. Do this guy here, for instance, he saved his son's life apparently when his doctors declared him brain dead and wanted to take him off life support. So he's not actually dead; he's declared brain dead. He barricaded himself with a gun in a hospital room for a 3-hour standoff, and then his son squeezed his hand, and his son made a full recovery. So
Yeah.
that type of thing.
That's the type of thing. And again, brain death is something I'm going to bring into the next article, because I've had conversations and I realize there's more to this topic. But the first act came out in 1871 in Germany, which is really interesting. That's the very earliest one. Then there were 3 in the 20th century, so Switzerland, Colombia, and the US state of Oregon. So they were the only ones in the 20th century. It's really taken off since the beginning of the 2000s. And certainly, well, there were 2 American states and 3 European countries in the first decade of the 2000s. Then it started picking up as and again, Vermont in 2013, but from 2016 onwards, it's really picked up in a number of countries and, as I say, US states, and obviously coming into the UK. Now, the terminally ill adults end of life bill that passed on the 29th of November is for England and Wales alone. There's separate, it's not legislation yet, but there's a separate bill going through in Scotland that actually started the process in March of this year. Last year. No, we have 2025 now. Right. Sorry. So 2024, and in Ireland in October. So they're starting it somewhat earlier in Scotland. And again, because I'm talking to you, I picked up some more information, because there are slight differences in the bill for Scotland than the one for England and Wales, which again I will highlight. On this website, the World Federation Right to Die Societies only goes up to 2022, so it hasn't. Although obviously it's not an act yet, but it seems to me that it's in the process in a number of other countries around the world. So it's definitely something that's moving out. There are differences in some of the countries. So there's in Canada, for example, it was first brought in 2016, and as assisted suicide and euthanasia were allowed under certain conditions, and as long as it was done by a physician. Now, there's a difference between euthanasia and assisted suicide. So
assisted suicide being assisted dying, same thing.
Well, the assisted suicide, and again, yeah, if we're okay with using these words, because even that is got to be careful. Assisted suicide is where the patient takes the substance themselves, and euthanasia is where somebody else actually administers whatever it is, and it's usually an injection, but not always. Obviously, if it's administered by someone else, that probably would be an injection, because most people would tend not to actually inject themselves. Now, the difference in Canada, one of the things that I found, because I was having a conversation with Beth Martins about this, so I looked at the situation in Canada, and whereas in the bill that's going through England and Wales, and also in Scotland, is to do with people being terminally ill. Now, that was the situation, first of all, in Canada, but it's now changed for people to just be to have an irremediable medical condition. So it's no longer, so it just has to be a condition that's in an advanced state of decline that cannot be reversed.
So say you've got arthritis really bad and you're suffering from arthritis, you could say, I choose not to live with this anymore. Basically,
if they're in phenomenal pain, constantly, yes. But it is, it's not a requirement to have a fatal or terminal condition in Canada now. At the moment, there are none of these bills seem to include what are called mental disorders, although that's going to be reviewed in a couple of years in Canada. So you can start to see that there's a movement towards making these things more allowable, and there are so many issues, and I am totally aware and feel compassion for people who are in absolute pain and distress all the time, and that's not the issue here. You know, I totally understand that.
Well,
My
again, it's what
concern,
treatment are they getting, what the doctor's telling them. Is there a different cure from what they're presenting to them? You know, all that kind of
well, that's the thing, of course, because under all these bills, the person has to be, you know, medically qualified, you know, under this system. So they can only be looking at the conditions through a particular lens. So they've got that training behind them. They've got ideas of what these conditions are called, what their labels are, and so they're in that narrow band of thinking that, well, that's the condition, and these are the so-called treatments. Well, if that one doesn't work, we can give you another one, because there's a few different pharmaceuticals that they can give people that treatments. And again, we know how the system works. They go, well, there's nothing we can do. You probably have to live with it, but we can give you these drugs. This will manage it, but you'll have to take them for life. And so many people have actually ditched that and said, have looked, maybe that's too, I don't know, maybe they have, but they've seen it a different way, and they've taken a different route, and they've actually carried on their lives without going that route, without having to be on these pharmaceuticals, on these products, on these. I can't call them medicines or medications. I find that really difficult. So yes, they're taking these pharmaceuticals, and maybe to some extent, they will be reducing the severity of symptoms, and certainly if they're on morphine for pain, that does, or that can counter pain, and obviously that may help a person, but that isn't, again, it's not dealing with the underlying issues. So it's not going to change the condition, because all they're doing is just suppressing symptoms, masking symptoms. It's what's they're not addressing what's underlying. And there could be all sorts of different reasons for those underlying problems. And it may not be physical. It could be to do with something that's happened to them. It could be to do with something in their environment, that maybe they need to change their environment. There's no way of knowing without actually having a full discussion. And even sometimes, we don't know what's in our environment necessarily. We don't always know what's affecting us. And each person is on their journey. So again, recognizing that, that's their journey, their choice. My purpose is to help people have all the information. So, because they say, informed consent, you go, well, does this person have all the information they need to be able to make an informed choice? Are they actually giving truly informed consent? I mean, okay, not necessarily 100%, but for people to have as much information as they can, so that when they're making a decision, they feel they're making it from the right place, not out of fear.
Well, it was like the COVID jab, we're told it's safe and effective when you go. Meanwhile, I've just seen somebody pass out from it, and the nurse is now giving it to the next person. So I don't think it was informed choice in that level. Never mind.
No. And again, that's just reliant on people being conditioned by the idea that vaccinations, all of them, any of them, that they all do something beneficial. They prevent something, they protect you, they do X, Y, Z. And of course, with the COVID thing, we know so many people had these vaccination, whatever, shots, jabs, for a variety of reasons, and a lot of them out of fear, and some of them, to do with their job, to do with
peer pressure.
Being able, oh, total, yeah. There was a lot of pressure on different people, and yeah, peer pressure. If you're the only one in your family, and they say, well, you're not coming for Christmas dinner unless I mean, there are some people who go, oh, great, but I mean, not everybody, but I mean, that type of thing. I mean, that's just so disrespectful, and yet at the same time, people were in that position of fear, thinking that somebody posed a risk. You go, I haven't got any symptoms. You go, that doesn't matter. You could be carrying it, because of this whole nonsense of asymptomatic carriers. Yeah. That's just, and it's that's really, as I say, what I try to do is share information, say, look, here's the information, these are the puzzle pieces, put them together and you'll see how you can make what is an informed decision.
Do you think there's a danger that these doctors could be almost recommending, you know, oh, you're going to be in this for life, or you're feeling ill, well, you know, we could kill you off if you want, you know? It's almost going to be part of their modus operandi, you know? Because I know in COVID, the hospitals were getting £40,000 every time somebody died with COVID, you know? So maybe they'll be encouraged somehow to end life.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's that's the thin end of the wedge of you know, is this going to be something that people will be offered as an option, or is it going to be, and again, doctors don't necessarily have to recommend it, because many people you know, I've heard doctors say that, you know, people come in and they actually demand antibiotics, you know, for example, it's like, I've got whatever and I want you know, and so, you know, or I want vaccinations, you know, just, you know, so will people say, you know, I want this. I was saying about Canada, but I just wanted to make the point, as I say, because, you know, obviously you're in Scotland, the difference between well, there are a few differences between the bills that are going through England and Scotland at the moment, or England and Wales and Scotland. In Scotland, the age of you know, the person is 16 and over, whereas in England and Wales it's 18 and over.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
There's a slight definition differences between the two bills in terms of what they call terminally ill. In Scotland, I'm going to read this out because I printed this, but in Scotland, the bill defines someone as terminally ill if they have an advanced and progressive disease, illness, or condition from which they are unable to recover and that can reasonably be expected to cause their premature death. Right. The England and Wales bill says someone is terminally ill if they have an inevitably progressive disease, illness, disease, or medical condition that cannot be reversed by treatment, and the person's death in consequence of that illness, disease, or medical condition can reasonably be expected within 6 months. So there's a 6 months thing in England and Wales, but that doesn't seem to be in the Scottish bill, which is interesting. I wonder why that's different. Sorry?
Does that mean they could get rid of you quicker?
Well, it doesn't have to have that 6 month prognosis. So, it's not time limited.
All right. So, yeah, you could say, oh, you could die within 3 years. We'll kill you now, kind of thing. You know, anyways, it's an interesting thing. It's just that's missing. Here's something in Scotland a few years ago. They announced that everyone's organs are up for grabs unless you send them a letter and tell them. So me and my son sent a letter. So I don't know if they're going to stick to that. You know, I sent a letter on his behalf, but basically saying, no, you can't have our organs because, again, if someone's brain dead, they're still alive and they can harvest organs when the body's alive. So that could be a way. We know organ trafficking and stuff like that's a big business as well. Again, the NHS, we all think about the good old NHS and it's failing, we should prop it up. Maybe it was all created at the start for nefarious reasons, collecting everyone's DNA and being able to do these types of things. So there's good and bad sides to it. Mostly, well, as you said before, for physical injury it can be good, but all the tablets that are shoving down people's throats and the kind of mindset behind it all is not necessarily good. So that could be a way for them to get organs as well.
Totally, and that's one of the extra sort of pieces of information that I've come across, because it was a little while ago I discovered that the idea of brain death doesn't mean that the person is actually dead, and in fact, in order to harvest a person's organs, they have to still be alive.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was a case where somebody was declared brain dead and they were starting to harvest the organs, and he woke up.
Oh my God, imagine.
I don't know how far they'd got. Obviously, you know, the sort of incisions. I don't know.
Getting my intestines back.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite that far, but anyway, whatever. So it just goes to show they weren't, and at the same time, there are, near-death experiences, which I think you've talked about before as well, that where there, people have near-death, they're expected, to die momentarily, or they're about to die, or they have. In some cases, they even have died. I mean, Alex interviewed somebody, a guy called Vinnie Tolman, who was dead, zipped up in a body bag, and still came back.
Wow.
So there's so many areas that are still, if you like, grey areas that are not as cut and dried, that I think this is very, very tricky territory, which is again why part of it was like, there's because it's sensitive. That I know there are people who have horrible conditions. They are, they have serious conditions, and that's, I'm not ignoring that. I'm not denying that. That's
So there's some people dying, and there's probably irreversible by the stage that they've got to, that it probably can't be reversed at this stage through any means, and they're in palliative care. So one way to get rid of them quicker is to kill them off, and that makes more space. And people will say, "Oh, palliative care standards are going down."
I've heard, yeah.
Then they need more funding. But again, Ukraine, there's 75 billion or whatever, every couple of weeks. So it's a matter of priorities.
Totally.
And who's putting the money in. Again, this money's all fabricated and created, and they can print it at will. But at the same time,
Precisely.
in theory, they have to balance their books or whatever on the face of it. But it's just they're making a choice. They're taxing everybody to the hilt. It's not just the income tax that, again, apparently just pays interest on bankers' loans or whatever. It's not what we're told. But everything we buy has got VAT or tax or whatever. It's just how much of our earnings actually goes to the government. So they say the councils are going bankrupt or whatever, but to me it's just an excuse to reduce services. They shut down our local recreation centre, so everyone in town is wanting it, but it's just, we've made the decision, shut it down. You wonder if there's something down the road that they know is going to happen, why they've shut down all these businesses or whatever. That's the great plan, the reset or whatever. But it seems to me they're not working for the people on any level. So that's recreation centre shut down, kids are on the street, causing grief and hassle and not having a place to go and get exercise and feel good. In the hospitals, palliative care standards going down, and just they're not giving funding for care and empathy of things that should be done as human beings should be caring for each other and animals. It's a kind of role on the planet. If it's another debate, but
I know.
Basically, and then you've got talked about nocebo effect. I was thinking about cigarettes as well. You've got those pictures on the packet. If you smoke these, you're going to catch this disease and things like that. It's just like a war on us. And people need to become aware of this and demand. Again, when we shout louder, things can change. But if people aren't aware of this information and just accept it, which is what they do because they're on the rat race of life, and just not enough time to get a protest together or sort these things out. It's just it's quite a scary situation that seems to be going on with this bill, and not just in this country.
Yes, totally. I mean, with the funding, I mean, that's it. It's a question of choice of where they put the funding, and certainly here, so many cries of, NHS is falling apart, not enough funding. Part of it is possibly because they want to bring in some form, or they want people to then take over, the private, so that it becomes private. We can't look after you. I mean, it's not we know it's not a healthcare system anyway. It's a just disease management. So it is a question of choice, because, as you say, they find more than enough money when they want to go to war. So it's not a question of there isn't enough money. It is absolutely on allocation, just in the same as, talk about food scarcity. Well, there isn't. It's just a question of distribution. Once you start looking into these things, you see them differently. And so you're not scared by them. And I think also point you made about people caring for each other is absolutely key. And this is the point. It's like, we don't need the system to care for us. It's a question of caring for each other and sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing resources about how we can help each other, and recognizing what illness is. And sometimes, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but sometimes people manifest an illness because that they're in need of some care and love and attention. I don't mean attention, in that kind of, oh, I need attention, but just, they're in need of some care because maybe they're not looking after themselves or whatever. There's so many parts to all of this, and I'm not pretending I know them all. I do know that helping each other, looking after each other, caring for each other, connecting, communicating, cooperating with each other is how we move forward in this, and not relying on these systems, because as you say, they are falling apart. They aren't looking after us. They aren't there to look after us. And that really can be shown through the nocebo effect, which there's a couple of parts in the article which I'll sort of refer to. I mean, it's well known that the nocebo effect, which just the whole idea of.
I was just having a look at this. This is
right, yes.
Thing. Just a first declaration signed in the person by making the declaration. Yeah, just the element here that somebody who's maybe in the will of someone could be encouraging the doctor or that person to, end their life because they're going to get money from their estate, and then the government will take 40% of that as well.
Well, the bill says it's got safeguards, but of course, these things can change between now and when it actually becomes an act. But yes, I mean, you're quite right. There are supposed safeguards to make sure that the people who are involved aren't going to benefit if, at the end of that person's life. Something else somebody pointed out is, what about insurance, life insurance or whatever? I mean, is this going to be covered?
Yeah, or does that make it null?
Will this invalidate? Sorry.
Yeah, does that invalidate it? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, people need to find out.
You just get the impression whatever goes through Parliament or whatever, is not for their benefit. They've got schemes and which again, the Sovereign Project, if people can kind of get on that and realise that we can create our own law, everyone has the power to learn law and not play them at their game, because they're using language and all these things to trick us into various things, which again, we could be empowered in this situation if we understand if we claim our rights, rather than just ask, oh, what can I do here? And, just be in the whim of authority all the time.
Yes. And that applies, like the nocebo effect, with believing that the authorities are, this is not a downer on doctors. This is merely showing that their training doesn't cover this aspect, which is, again, the nocebo effect. There's a section in there which I copied from an article from Psychology Today by Lisa Rankin, who wrote the book Mind Over Medicine. The subtitle is Medical Hexing. She says, every time your doctor tells you have an incurable illness, or that you'll be on medication for the rest of your life, or that you have a 5% 5-year survival, they're essentially cursing you with a form of medical hexing. They don't mean to. They're not trying to harm you. And then she just says, they know not what they do, because they are going from the basis of what they have been trained. And we know from education, that we are taught something, and to get through the exam, we just regurgitate what we are taught. Doesn't mean it's correct, though. And I'm not saying it's always wrong. It may not be. It's a question of, we don't know whether it's correct or not. We just know that if we don't tell them that, we get a big, red cross, which is also interesting. and told we're wrong, and we don't like being told we're wrong or we've made mistakes, or some people. But she goes on, doctors think they're telling it to you straight, and this is the point. They do. It's like, well, I'm just telling you because I think you need to know, because anyway, so yeah, that you deserve to know, that you should be realistic and make arrangements if necessary. But when they say such things, they instill in your conscious and subconscious mind a belief that you won't get well. And as long as the mind holds this negative belief, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you'll never recover, you won't. And that's the point. When you get this diagnosis of whatever, again, say cancer, because that's probably one of the most feared diseases. It won't be the only one. There's all sorts of other chronic conditions, but let's just go with cancer because with where we are. So you get the and that already sets the body into I mean, I know we've said the body is intelligent. At the same time, it will respond if you put it in a fear state, because obviously it's going to try and survive. But if the fear takes over, the body can manifest what the fear is creating. And so you get the diagnosis, which is scary enough for some people. And then if people say, well, how long have I got, doctor? And they say, well, about 6 months. Then it's amazing how many people follow those instructions. It's not that the doctor is right. I mean, they become right, but as Lisa Rankin said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So they comply with the instruction that, because they fully believe it. They take that on absolutely fully and say in 6 months, and that's what happens. There are, of course, many people who say, no, however politely or impolitely, no, thank you. I'll take my health into my own hands. And that's why also I wanted to include the other parts from the Noetic Sciences, the Institute for Noetic Sciences, how the characteristics of people who are characteristics of people who have gone in either what's called remission or have survived cancer, and it is to do with changing from dependency to autonomy, and not just in your belief system, but the actions you then take in your life. So it's what you think and then what you then act upon. So it's not either just change your beliefs. It's taking the action that then puts that into practice. So it's mind and body together. So it shows that people don't have to be don't have to comply with the instructions, if you like. And maybe sometimes the doctors are right. Maybe there are some conditions that really, really are terminal in that way. I don't know. I can't say. It's possible. I'm just saying it's not always the case. And this aspect, this placebo, the nocebo effect, it is important. And I'm even at the point where I think calling it nocebo effect is still reducing it to it's minimizing it. I think it's more powerful than that, and it's recognizing that it is powerful, and we are powerful to overcome these limiting ideas.
It's like people have taken saline drugs and been told it's chemotherapy or whatever, and then their hair falls out and you get nausea and sickness, but actually have not had the real chemo and stuff like that. So that's totally. The power of the mind. Totally. I was talking to somebody recently who had a friend who had just been for radiotherapy and stuff, and says, oh, he's going to be on steroids. He's taking steroids every day now. And it's just like, I said, what the steroids doing? And he's going to be on them for the rest of his life. I said, well, what are these steroids doing? He says, oh, I don't know. I don't think he knows. It's just these doctors know more than us. And that's that. I was like, well, maybe you should find out what they're actually doing and why you need to take them for the rest of your life. That's the questions I'd be asking. But again, it's just the ultimate trust in the men in white coats.
Yes, and that's such a good point. Exactly, that I think people, we're saying, oh, question everything. Well, yes, and not in a combative way. Just say, can you explain some more about whatever, and what are these drugs going to do? What do the steroids do? What can I expect? How are they going to help me? Like, just
Yeah.
ask the questions.
Like a child, like ask questions, don't they? And then you get to schools, like sit down, shut up, and here's the answer. So that inquisitive mind gets shut down at an early age. He's asking too many questions: who, where, what, when, and why. Be quiet. And then it's the school is A, B, C, or D. Outcome-based learning. Where in the past you'd have to think and write something down, and the answer wasn't just presented for you. So that's another way to dumb us down. Basically, the education system is taking the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, critical thinking out of most people as well. So they don't have that inquisitive mind, and people, even with the virus thing, they just don't think they'll be able to grasp it. It's too complicated. But in reality, it doesn't take that much looking at it to, even you watch the Viral Delusion series of 5 parts, you've got a much better understanding just from sitting watching that, So it's not complicated. It's the time and the belief that you can actually know these things, and these people aren't some kind of gods because they've been to medical school.
Well, and I would add, there's also the end of COVID. The end of COVID.
Oh yeah, that was a fantastic research.
I mean, that's much bigger series, much wider, and it's not just about viruses. It covers the whole thing, and also moves into the potential solutions, and moving into an understanding that we're our bodies are electrical, that we're energetic beings, that there's something magical about water, that there's so much more to us, looking at our biofield, there's and understanding who we are. We're not just these lumps of sort of flesh machines, that there's nothing we can do about it. So there's so much to all of that, and understanding the role of, as you say, what we put in and on our bodies, and also in our mind. Well, again, see, mind, that's another thing, because part of my research is I've discovered that a number of people have been found to have their brain missing and yet functioning perfectly normally, and even more so. There was one guy who was discovered, I think it was post he'd taken his degree, but he had an IQ of 126, which is pretty high, and he was discovered to have about 90% of his brain missing, in which case you think, well, he wasn't using, we're told that the brain does certain things, and learning and memory and that kind of stuff, and you go, boy, his brain, his head didn't have that brain, so something else is going on. And interestingly, in many cases, these people have hydrocephalus, which is what's called water on the brain, which is just, there's a larger amount of water. Well, it's not water, it's the cerebral spinal fluid, which is mainly water, but it's, again, it's a substance that is in the body. It's not just water as in, the water from the tap or whatever, but there's something very special about water, and if you look at Veda Austin's work with what she's discovering with water, that we're moving into a whole new understanding of life, the body, who we are, how this all works, and it takes us away from their systems, because that's not what they're about. They want us to be scared, afraid, and stupid to a certain extent. And controllable. We just go, okay, you're the man in the white coat, you've learnt. And I'm not saying I'm anything special or I've done anything special. I just spent a number of years researching and watching different things, and putting these pieces together, and seeing that there's so much more to this life. It's richer, and it's not just it can feel like a bit humdrum sometimes, and as we work our way through stuff, but it's part of a journey of discovering who and what we are, and what we can do. I think, that's part of it. That's part of it for me anyway. And like I say, we're on our own journeys of learning what this place is about, what its realm is, and most of it is unlearning, taking away what's wrong.
That's very much true. You've got to unlearn all the bullshit that's been put into your head. And you're probably better not sending your children to school, because school, especially these days, is a scary place. I found out
Indoctrination camps. Yeah, totally. I mean, and that can be hard for people, because I spent years building my education, and you're telling me it's all wrong. I go, not necessarily, but there are some parts you might want to rethink, because they're not built on anything that's true. We're finding out that these things are not true. So and that's moving into all sorts of areas. Like I say, with yeah, go on.
It was just to train you to defer your consciousness to the authority, and ask permission to go to the toilet and take the register every morning, give your name when asked, and little tricks they've got in there to prepare you for factory life. 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. Someone else telling you what to do.
Yeah, totally. And that's a good point with the register. It's like, what's your name? So it's automatic when somebody out, when you're an adult, if you're asked, what's your name, you just automatically come out with your name, because, that's, again, it's programmed
your legal birth certificate name, the dead piece of paper, the dead legal fiction that is not the man or woman, so they own you if it's in court or whatever at that point,
Yes, totally. And it is all part of the conditioning through those early years, when we are most impressionable and most likely to follow things. Although I know some people have always been rebels, and they're still the rebels now, which is great. We are all different, and we have different parts to play, that when we come together, it's it's the saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, so together we're much more powerful, which is, of course, another reason why they want us divided and fighting amongst ourselves and arguing and disputing all these minor little points, or sometimes not so minor points, or the choice between this political party or that one, or looking at what this person's up to or what they're not up to and what they're doing, and just and the whole idea of people wanting to be right about where they say, well, that's where you are on your journey, and maybe some of what you think you've learned may not quite be right. I think if we keep open minds and recognize, we're still learning, there's still loads more to learn, all sorts of interesting things. I'm not going to go into a topic I've not gone into before. I just started looking at is crop circles.
Okay.
Fascinating. I don't know. I don't know if you've looked into them, but
I seen a video yesterday. Somebody posted on Twitter. It was like the ball was going over the crop circle as it was getting made, and it was claiming that was an original footage. But, again, who knows? But it's certainly wasn't done by guys putting planks of wood in a field.
No, definitely. I'm still learning sort of the early stages, but it's a fascinating topic, and there have been some that were hoaxed, but they claim to have started it in 1978, but there've been crop circles for centuries, way before that. So
if you look at the way they're bent and stuff like that, and how they're overlapping the certain things, there's no way they're kind of a hoax or some kind of energetic force or whatever making them.
That's what I was going to say, and that's another thing that they've discovered, all kinds of anomalies, electromagnetic anomalies, compasses just going haywire, all kinds of equipment failing, not working if once they're inside the crop circle, but working again, or else just completely failing, and just which is expensive on these different pieces of equipment. So there's some energetic aspect to it, and also why a lot of them are in that part of England is because there's a lot of water, and the actual formation of the actual structure of what's below them. So there's definitely, again, I'm still, as I say, the early stages, but there are certainly some environmental conditions that are quite unique to that area, which seems to explain why there have been so many in that part of England. So it's not that England is special, except in terms of that, that formation of the environment, the ground, what's underground, and certainly in terms of water as well.
Interesting. I look forward to reading your article about that on Substack. Is that your next one? Are you going to do a follow-up to the assisted dying one?
Yeah, the crop circle one's going to be some time to come before I get to that. But I have now seen a second documentary by a guy called Gary King, who his YouTube channel is called Against the Grain. He's been studying crop circles for a very long time. I was on his channel for a while, but yeah, Against the Grain. Very interesting. As I say, his second documentary literally came out a few days ago. I can't remember if I'd bought the book or that. Yes, maybe that inspired me. I can't remember now, but it was, definitely fascinating. Again, one of the mysteries of this realm. And
sure.
yeah, as you say, it certainly wasn't, two guys with boards, and some of them seem to be created in such a short period of time and not the hours it would have taken. And they're stunning. They're beautiful. It's just amazing.
You wonder if there's some kind of message within the symbol itself, what they're trying to communicate, because they've got more complex over time as well. So yes, again, there's things that you got question time with these politicians and stuff, and they just never get asked any questions outside of the box, and there's their leaders and stuff. And I seen like a video of Nicola Sturgeon the other day, like shaking your head, like, is that the best Scotland can do? Surely there's going to be more intelligent, or Joe Biden or whoever these people are putting as the puppet to represent authority. There's a hell of a lot more to life than what's presented in front of us, and it's fun. And as you say, we're always learning because there's never-ending amounts to learn. So these people that get old and think they know everything are missing out on so much, because I know as long as I'll be alive, I'll be wanting to learn new things and, things you can find interesting that it just takes a wee bit of delving into stuff. And like, I'm going to interview a guy soon on Tartaria, and I've been aware of it for a while, but again, once you actually go a wee bit further down the rabbit hole, it's like, oh my God, a whole world of stuff, the Cabbage Patch Dolls and Tesla and all these things open up, and it's like, oh well, down another one. And it's interesting stuff. So I'm pleased to get people like him on, and yourself.
Yeah, I've tiptoed into that one. It's just, there were so many. It's like Child in the Sweet Shop. There's like so many different, but when you working on your own projects, it's kind of, well, I'll just focus on these. I think with the crop circles, yes, it's fascinating. There's also some energetic aspect to it, and again, who they are that are creating them. I'm not even going to speculate. I've no idea.
Mystery. That's the magical thing.
Yes. Maybe that goes in the same box as the the Mandela effect as to who what. I don't know at the moment. So I'm happy to park that and just learn more about them, because just what is known about them and what the questions are, and but definitely there's something energetic, and as you say, the patterns are quite stunning, and it does look like there's some information message of something or other. Yeah, but
I think so. I think there's definitely something trying to communicate something to us, and some people can interpret them differently. And
precisely, that was the point, that because people have got their different mindsets, different belief systems, that they'll interpret them slightly differently, and there's no way of knowing who's like right or whatever, again, because they are interpretations. I mean, some are with the measurements, you can see that there's amazing accuracy and geometry, certainly with some of them being oriented towards the point, well, I say points of the compass, but the sort of the way they're oriented. And again, reading the book, seeing some of the belief systems of the author who's writing the book, who's obviously been looking. So you go, so there's still a lens there, and in terms of what the universe or the cosmos is. So yeah, okay, well, that's his cosmology, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I just see things slightly differently. So again, just and that's not, it's not being critical of authors, because obviously with what I write, I'm only writing from where I am at any particular time, and sometime later I go, oh, actually, that's a bit different. I think I see things differently. I've learned some more, like you say, constantly learning. So and which is exciting. It's just so many boomers like my generation fell into the mainstream.
It's like you said, like even the thing about the heart not being a pump recently, that's another kind of discovery. It's more of an electrical, or how would you describe what they're saying the heart is?
It's more of a vortex. It works more like a vortex, because it unfolds, but as it's rolled, it's unfolded, and you can see that it's actually a vortex, and it certainly isn't a pump. Yeah, I mean, Tom Cowan's wrote about that in his book. I mean, he's talked about that. So yeah, that's again fascinating, and questioning cells. Do we have, is our body full of cells, or just cells in certain places, or cells the result of when something's actually taken out of the body, because we know that changes. So looking at something outside of the body and assuming that is the same as when it's in the body, but in the body it's connected to so much else, including the mind, if you like, consciousness.
Yeah.
So, there's only so much you can learn about something when you remove it from its natural environment. So,
yeah, fascinating stuff, Dawn. I'd like to get you back on sometime soon, hopefully, to have another chat about things. But I think we'll wrap up there. Is there anything you'd like to leave people with? Anything about your Substack, or what you're up to these days, or anything at all?
Well, I mean, yes, if people would like to sort of keep up with me, I mean, I've written. I can't remember how. There's, I don't know, probably 100 or so articles on there that can keep people amused for a little while. The Substack, it's dawnlester.substack.com. Dawn's writings, as you say. I don't promise to produce anything regularly. I just, when I'm inspired, something gets me, and I think, right, okay, I'm going to look deeper into that, with a view to helping people have the information to help them make informed decisions, to understand more, just diving into some of these topics, putting some puzzle pieces together so people can get a slightly clearer view of the bigger picture. So that's what I'm doing. Different things going on this year. There's a few things in the pipeline, talks, interviews, those kinds of things. Nothing fixed at the moment. So
go to your Facebook page. You always post links to your interviews on there. So you get Dawn Lester on Facebook, and you can find your various links from other people's shows. And
yes,
you've got whatreallymakesyouill.com. You still
Yes.
posting things on there? You're still doing a few interviews on that?
Not posting things on there. Got a bit of a hiccup with the software that for some reason the videos aren't loading properly. So that's just one of those minor
That's a headache.
issues. It is, yeah. They keep updating these plugins, and then things don't work in the same way. So we've got a Telegram group,
Right.
which I can share the link for.
Oh.
Yes, you're in. Yes,
Yeah, it's quite an active group.
Yeah, there's a channel and also a chat group, and yeah, there are a few people that are active there. Some people with different views, which is interesting, but that's okay.
When you have a forum-based kind of platform, you can't get people arguing.
I know. If you like, sort of, admin, moderator, whatever. I don't censor unless people are really. I mean, I don't censor, but I let people just, do what they're doing, having the fighting. But if it gets too silly, I'd comment. But I because I don't want to then do what I'm complaining of, other channels doing. So I was like, I'm not going to censor. But I I don't. I try to help people not to be disrespectful, shall we say? You know, it's disrespect and rudeness.
Well, we can't disagree without, you know, being at odds with each other. You know,
Yeah, you just say, well, I just don't see it that way. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather do that, but sometimes it descends to a bit of name calling. But you know, I just
Right.
I leave them to it, and they just post some good stuff afterwards, and let it just disappear up the rail. So yeah, I
Yep.
know it's the way it is. Sometimes even on Facebook still does that. I try not to get too involved. But anyway, it's been lovely to talk to you again, Billy. I'd love to come back at some point. It'd be great.
That's cool. So thanks for coming on, and everyone else, thanks very much for watching. And I'm back on Friday, I think, or Tuesday, with Steve Young. So look forward to that one. In the meantime, take care. Cheers now. Bye bye. Oh, I need to push this.